Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining Project Ready TV. Of course, I'm your host, Angie Anderson-Moton, and we appreciate you joining in and tuning in with us tonight. So this month, the month of May, is Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month, and we'll try to add a little health and fitness and all that good information in as well. But nationally, it is Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month, and we have Charlene Jones, who is the director of Teen Pregnancy Prevention at the Urban League of the Upstate, with us tonight. And we are excited that you are here, Charlene. And
Thank you.
Before I let her hop on and tell us all the good news about TPP, I just wanted to remind you to share this, invite your middle school and high school students. But not only that, it is also our parent lounge tonight. So that is where we take some time, and our segments are dedicated to our parents so that you can get in on some of these great resources that we may have to share throughout our community, so that you can use them anytime that you need them. So it is a custom thing at the Urban League. We usually try to have it once a month for our parents to participate simultaneously while their student is at the other end of our building. Parents are on the other end and they're learning all together. So we hope that this will create some kind of dialogue within your home, no matter what the topic may be. So now that you have had an opportunity to share this and invite everyone that you know, I am going to again introduce Charlene Jones. So what I would like for you to do, Charlene, is just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at the Urban League, and then we'll go from there.
Well, all right. Thank you so much, Angie. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight, and I appreciate the invitation to be able to share this information with our parents tonight. As Angie has indicated, my name is Charlene Jones. I am currently the director of TPP, which is Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program. It is a grant that we have through the Office of Public Population Health. And we're really excited to have this opportunity to share the information and curriculum with our community. We started back in July of 2019, and this grant will run through June of 2021. And as Angie indicated, we are offering workshops for adolescents up from ages 8th grade through the freshman year of college. But we also wanted to make sure that we didn't leave our parents out, because they are critically important to our youth during this time of developmental change in their lives. And so that's what the presentation is going to be about this afternoon. The title was actually The Explanation of Adolescent Development.
Awesome. I would not. So other than working at the Urban League, maybe tell us a few fun facts about yourself or something personal right quick before we hop into what we're going to talk about tonight.
All right. So I am the mother of two young men. Their ages are 12 and 15. I have been with the Urban League for 2 years. I have been in the nonprofit world for over 20 years, so now I'm kind of dating myself. But I really have a heart for the community and for people. In particular, I love adolescents. The teenage years are the ones that's really close to my heart. So that is kind of what actually drew me into this field in the beginning. And I guess as a fun fact, I will say growing up as a child, I had a pretty nice collection of teddy bears and cherished teddies.
Yes, in which we often hear that you still love. So
I do.
But who can resist a nice teddy bear? I mean, classic and ageless. You can.
There you go.
Always there. So again, thank you for joining us again tonight. And Charlene, I will allow you to tell our viewing audience a little bit about teen pregnancy prevention. Especially tonight is really focused for our parents. So parents, don't forget that tonight is for you. And then if you have any questions, we'll let you know how to contact us at the end. But Charlene, please, by all means, take over and give us some information about teen pregnancy prevention.
Okay, absolutely. So, as I indicated, our topic for tonight is the explanation of adolescent development. And we are wanting to make sure that these objectives are kind of met by the time we're finished with the two-part series. So tonight we're doing the first part, and our objectives for the entire series are as follows. We're wanting you to gain and to increase an awareness of developmental milestones during adolescence in 5 different domains, to be able to comprehend the kinds of changes that the adolescent brain is experiencing, to understand the potential connections and insights on how adolescents make decisions, that could be a big one, and to understand why adolescence is such a time of risk-taking. That we're all really familiar with the fact that during that time of our life, we seem to think that we're invincible. So to identify tips for caring adults to be able to support their teens in these various stages of development. So we're going to start out by discussing adolescence being the second major growth period in the human development. Adolescence is a time of vast and numerous changes that are going on within a young person. Adolescence is a time of vast number of critically important changes that present a lot of unsettledness and confusion. However, it's also a time of acquiring new skills and ways of interacting and perceiving the world. This is a time when new skills and relationships are more important than it was previously in our lives. It's a time of physical changes. The brain is in the second phase of rapid growth. Emotions are all over the place because of the new hormonal changes and surges that a person is experiencing. It's also a time when a child starts to learn their identity and test those previously accepted beliefs and values. It's a time of experimentation and pulling away from a person's primary adult attachment and starting to test those boundaries. While some adults may talk about adolescent changes as a time period of rapid growth when their child is like completely unrecognizable, who is this stranger that's living in my house? And the kid could be appearing to lose their mind. This is also a time when adult guidance and support is most needed and critically encouraged. So I encourage parents and caring adults to read up and remind themselves of all that the adolescent is enduring and practice being sensitive and supportive instead of judgmental and pulling away from this preteen that they don't really recognize. Today, I'd like to remind us all of these changes that the adolescents are living through and trying to cope with. And I'd like to do that by exploring the 5 domains of significant adolescent growth, which are physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and morals and values. So we will start now with physical development. Physical changes are occurring internally and externally. There's this obvious muscle definition and a shifting in fat. Females are developing curves, males are getting broad shoulders, males are experiencing changes in their voice, and these changes are all happening to everyone but at different rates, which can lead sometimes to the adolescents comparing themselves and their body types, their shapes, their strengths, and their overall looks. They get real caught up on how they look and how someone is going to treat them. The way one looks has a direct correlation on how someone might treat and perceive them. You can have a boy who, say, is in a middle school. He looks like and sometimes gets treated like he's an adult because of the facial hair that he may have and how tall he has gotten. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can have a smaller child or one who is developing a little more slowly be mistaken as a child of a younger age. And that could be kind of hurtful or offensive to that kid because it makes them feel like something's wrong with them just because they're not changing as rapidly as another. And if that's not enough, in the background while all of these things are happening, their ability to procreate is also rapidly changing, which brings about a whole different set of focuses and attention. They're now dealing with attractions to others, compounded by now having to worry about if they can contract an STI or even get pregnant. For some, these changes are embarrassing because they're new and it's outside of their control. Yet, as adults, we may wonder why adolescents are so moody. Why are they so irritable one minute and then jovial and impulsive and happy-go-lucky the next? Again, this is a period of a lot of rapid change. It's completely out of anyone's control. This change is happening, and they don't necessarily have the capacity of the brain development to even be able to cope. So adults are really needed to teach them how to cope, plan, assess, and even regulate their own emotions. So let's take a closer look at exactly what a caring adult could do to support a kid during this period of physical development. First, normalize the changes that they're going through. By that, I mean remind them that everyone is going through these changes, but at different ages and different rates. Some people may develop acne, while others may have larger feet and more hair than they want, or less hair, and the body odor is changing. Tell them that all of their peers are in this stage, and they're experiencing some of the same worries about fitting in and what's right or wrong with them. But whatever developmental path he or she is on is completely okay and is not for them to worry about. Here's a mantra that they can use and repeat so that they can remember that they're not in it alone. Mirror, mirror on the wall, this is happening to us all. Encourage them to love the skin that they are in. Create experiences whereby they are able to find things about their bodies that they appreciate. Help create unique experiences for them. Have them to create their own personal labels and positive affirmation, as opposed to looking for that to be given to them by others outside. This is a time of exploring new skills and opportunities. So determine what interests you have in common with your child and spend time together engaging in it. Learning new skills contributes to the brain's development while also giving them more positive things upon which to focus. Just as during the first year of life, babies are going through rapid growth and change, adolescence is the second time in a life of rapid growth and change. As an adult and as a baby, a lot of sleep was required in order for this growth to take place. The same is true for adolescents. They really need about 9 to 10 hours a day to sleep so that their bodies can make these growth progress that it needs to. A lot of them think, no, there's no way I can get 9 to 7, even 7 hours of sleep. It's important to know it doesn't have to be all at once. They can do it a 7-hour night and then take a nap at some point during the day. It's just this within a 24-hour period for optimal development. At least 9 to 10 hours is what's recommended. Then we all know that smoking and drugs impedes optimal health, and it's another substance and experience that kids can get really excited about as they are growing. But it's important to know that it can cloud their ability to think clearly. It's important that parents share their views on drug and alcohol and explain their values on this topic. It also helps if parents can be congruent and model what they believe. So if you're telling your kids, don't go out and do drugs and alcohol, and yet they see that you're around the house getting sloshed every so often, that's not necessarily being congruent and sending a message that they can follow, because they're going to wonder, should I do what my parent says or do I do what my parent is doing? Be congruent. So now we're going to talk about cognitive development. But before moving into that segment, Angie, do you have any questions about anything that you've heard so far?
I don't. Keep going. This is great
All
information.
Right. Very good. So we'll move on now to cognitive development. The brain develops from the back, which is known as the base of the brain, and it's sometimes referred to as the hindbrain, but the technical term is the cerebellum. All of the changes that a brain will go through happens at different rates for every person. Different parts of the brain are responsible for different bodily functions and abilities. The front of the brain is the last part that develops, and it is not completely finished growing until a person has reached the ages between 25 and 30 years of age. It's usually about 25 for girls and around 28 for guys. The prefrontal cortex, which is at the front of the brain, is responsible for our executive functioning. This is where abstract thinking takes place, decision-making, assessing, and planning occurs. So if we think about what this actually means in the life of a child, they're going through a whole lot of physiological changes. Their brain is going through changes. Their emotions are going through changes. And what we're saying in this particular slide is that the front of the brain, with it being the last to develop, is where they're able to have control over these different aspects of their bodies. But that's, interestingly, the very last thing that develops. So sometimes we'll have kids who may commit a crime, for instance, and they're 16 or 17, and our legal system may want to try them as if they were an adult. And there's a lot of controversy over that, because what we know scientifically is their brains aren't ready and developed, and they're not able to process and even comprehend what they have done fully, because of the that part of the brain has not yet developed. So just keep in mind, when they're doing some things that look out of character, yes, their bodies are looking like they are an adult, but in the brain, they're not quite there yet. So they still need your help in getting them across that finish line. The brain grows and strengthens itself in 3 different ways. During adolescence, the brain is producing an enormous number of new brain cells and at a very rapid rate. It produces more cells than it will actually use, but the extra cells allow for more information to be stored in the brain. Second, the extra cells and the cell connections that are called synapses that are not used are pruned, and they're cut away so that the brain functions more efficiently. It gets rid of wasted connections, making room for the ones that they're going to use through the acquisition of new skills, knowledge, and experiences that strengthen the brain's synapses. The way that they are strengthened is by this special fatty tissue that wraps around the cells in order to protect and insulate it. This enables more information to be stored in the brain that can actually be used in their daily lives. These changes help with recalling information and to be able to use the information efficiently. In the picture above, in the left column, you will see the synaptic connections of a brain of a baby. If you think about what it is that a baby is born knowing how to do, they can cry, they engage in food, they start to make contact, they're able to regulate their body temperatures, they expel waste. And so that's pretty much all that the brain needs to be able to do when a person is born. But as we grow, from the people we surround ourselves with and the interactions we have with the world, new connections are created, which moves us now into the middle column, where you see there's rapid connections and creation of synapses all over the place. But also towards the end of adolescence is when the ones that are not used begin to be pruned away. And so you're moving now into the final column, where after the extra cells have been cut away, this is allowing for space to be strengthening of the connections that we use on a regular basis. So that means the more you engage in an activity, when we say study makes things easier, better for you. If you're exercising, the more you do it, the better your muscle memory is going to be. All of that is because of the brain. The more you do something, it is getting stronger and stronger in those synaptic connections of the brain. So the changes in the adolescent brain affects an adolescent's thinking skills. Specifically, young people gain these advantages as the brain grows and strengthens itself. For instance, they are now able to engage in abstract thinking. This is the ability to imagine what you cannot see, such as what is love or justice or concepts of ideas. Another advanced thinking skill is advanced reasoning. Adolescents are now able to predict outcomes of their actions and use logic to imagine possibilities. Another thinking skill is what we call metacognitions. This is the ability to think about thinking, which allows a youth to process how they arrived at an idea, a conclusion, or an answer. And then a final thinking skill is the enhanced learning. This is the ability of the adolescent to absorb facts, skills, and ideas at a rapid pace, and it's all because of the new synaptic connections that they have developed. So what is it that we can do? We're wanting to create environments that guides their choices. A major challenge that results from the rapid growth in a young person is the adolescent's increase in risk-taking. Youth are predisposed to taking more risks than adults. which is an essential part of growing up. But if you think about it, we are all required to take some risks when we decided on our careers, on who it is that we're going to date and marry, where we're going to live, and where we're going to marry and raise our families. Adolescents are able to think through these risks and be logical, but they're not necessarily making the healthiest decisions because of the emotional and social rewards that can be more powerful than logic and reason. So, adults can help protect the youth from unhealthy risk-taking by first being aware of the fact, and second, by creating situations, environments, and circumstances that help guide making appropriate choices in these three specific ways, which is deferring the reward, which we're wanting to make sure that they learn to wait, that everything that they want does not have to be instantly given to them. You want the kids to learn how to delay gratification. So that's what we mean by deferring the reward. And then be able to help them understand hot versus cold environments. So if you are having hot cognitions, hot thoughts, that means you're angry, you're emotional. And when you're emotional, the logical brain cuts off. So you're not able to really connect with the reason and the logic because you're acting just on emotion and impulse. But if you're in a cold environment or cold cognitive environment, that's the time when you're calm, you're cool, you're collected, you're able to reason and engage in conversations that make sense with adults. That's the time that we're wanting parents to spend time with their kids, creating those plans of actions. Like if you're going to be faced with this particular scenario, what would you do? How would you handle it? And those are the times to make those plans. And again, the more they practice those things, they're more likely to default to that when they're in a situation that's requiring them to make better choices. And finally, sensation seeking. Again, we know adolescence is a time that we're wanting to take risks. They're all about looking for that thrill and that high. Which is often why they start to experiment in drugs, because they understand that they can get that rush and that feeling and how good it feels. And we're saying, okay, we recognize that's something that you need. It's appropriate to have that desire. Well, let's come up with a healthy way to fulfill that interest. What about going jet skiing? What about rock climbing? What about engaging in a new hobby or a new sport? Something that you're not already naturally good at doing that can give you that same thrill and high when you learn how to accomplish that particular new skill set. So again, what can caring adults do? Because adolescents are eager to improve their abstract thinking, start asking these kinds of probing questions. How would you respond in this particular scenario? What are your thoughts about XYZ? By asking teens to think through the pros and cons of various actions, they engage in both short and long-term impact analysis. This helps to improve their thinking capacity for the future. So for example, right now, a struggle that I'm sometimes having with my 12-year-old is the fact that he thinks he should be able to stay up all night and be on the game system with his friends. So I could be the parent and just say, get off the system, it's late, it's time to go to bed. But a better alternative that gets him to engage in the process is to be able to say, okay, if you stay up all night and it's a school night on the game system, what are the pros and cons that you could potentially face tomorrow as it comes to being ready for class and being focused for your activities? And so having him to verbalize that and think through it for himself starts to shape the way he's going to think about things. That's considered a teachable moment. And rather than me having to just point the finger and shake the finger and demand what he does, I had him to engage in the process, and now he's more likely to take ownership of that himself. Also, as indicated before, encourage them to engage in new sports, trying new foods, cultures, experiences, and starting new hobbies. These new skills could become coping mechanisms for the future, but initially it's going to require them to take a chance. And again, that can go back to serving to fulfill the need for sensation seeking. So at this, I will take questions that we have about what we have covered so far.
So I think this is definitely great information, Charlene. You talked a bit about Well, indirectly, you mentioned how we can give different alternatives, but that would definitely take some practice on our parents' end, depending on how they were brought, how they were raised, and how they're currently doing things now. How
Yeah.
what advice could you give to the parents in that aspect? As in, it's all a learning moment.
Yes.
Definitely think talking about teen pregnancy prevention looks a lot different how we grew up. Um,
Yes.
it's either it wasn't discussed at all, and you found out on your own.
Yes.
So, what are some tips that you may have personally that could just help build the parents' muscles and the way they think and the way they do things to
Yes.
make information in a new way, so to speak, to the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. That's a part of what motivated me to present on this topic tonight, because I think sometimes we take for granted that because we were kids ourselves, that we know it all, we experienced it, we lived it. But you're absolutely right. The way that we were supported or not supported had an impact on how we grew up and what our belief system was all about. And so I encourage parents, one, to take the time to not just remember it from your own personal experience, but read up on some scientific articles about what it is that adolescent is actually going through, and remind yourself, I may not even known that when I was in that particular phase of development, that that's what was going on with me. We were not as open in talking about, here are the things that's going to be happening with your body. Come and talk to me about these things. And I am real big with extending the invitation to my boys. You can come and talk to me about absolutely anything, because what I know from my own lived experiences is exactly what you said. I'm either going to learn it from a trusted, caring adult. I'm going to go to the internet, which could give me all kinds of mixed up information in this day of time, or I'm going to go to my friends, or I'm going to experiment myself and figure it out. Right. And so if we're wanting to insulate our kids, I always believe in setting parameters and giving them freedom within limits. So it's like on a bowling alley, you can put the bumpers up, but let the ball go where it's going to go. And if you consider yourself those bumpers, they're going to come to you when something gets heavy, when something gets confusing. But you got to set that pattern in calm times, and I also learned in having two kids, I waited to talk about some of these things with my firstborn when he was in middle school, so 6th grade. I learned in hindsight that was too late. So the second time around, I talked to my second child in the 4th grade, 3rd grade. He was a lot more open to just engaging in conversation without the giggles. We could look at books and pictures of things, and he didn't feel embarrassed about it, because for him, it really was an opportunity to just learn, okay, so this is what's going to happen to me? Really? Tell me more about this. And then when those changes start to happen, he came and said, hey, Mom, remember what we talked about in that book? I think I'm getting there, Whereas in my older son, he was like, ew, don't go there. I don't want to hear it. My friends got me. I'm good. I'm like, no, I want to be able to engage in this conversation. So it's taken a little more time because I started later with him. But we are now getting to the point that, depending on the subject matter, right, he will come to me and say, hey, can we talk about, or I'm feeling X, or I have this particular situation that's going on, and can we talk through it?
Yeah. And honestly, the more closed in I think a parent is the more closed in that your student would be. I can just think of, just how it was for me. I felt like, especially being raised in a God-fearing home.
Yes.
It just, and not saying anything bad about my parents, but just, if you keep it kind of like a taboo or secret or whatever, yes, instead of just saying, oh, these are the things that will naturally happen.
Correct.
You may see yourself getting a different response. Well, I'm so super excited that we were able to talk a little bit about the first half of the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program. Tell me, how are you offering this at the Urban League?
Okay. Very good. Right now, because of the impact of COVID-19, things have changed. And so we were impacted by that change and had to figure out rather quickly what were we going to do to continue to be able to connect with our youth out there. So we're offering workshops consistently through Eventbrite. where you can sign your adolescent up for a course. It takes place in 13 hours, but we have gotten to the point that we can do this now in about 4.5-hour segments a day.
Mm-hmm.
We use a Zoom platform, but we have been able to implement a new tool called Mentimeter that allows us to be very interactive with the students. So it's definitely not just come sit and listen to a lecture. There's lots of interaction that is required. And we actually, the more we interact, the funner it is. And the opportunity for learning gets to not be so something that we're dreading. Right. We understand that youth are spending a lot of time now on the computer just for their basic academic requirements. And so we've decided to incentivize this particular opportunity. So if you were to complete at least 80% of the 13-hour curriculum, you're going to get a gift card. It could be to a fun or field trip out someplace. It could be a painting class opportunity, lessons on how to become and build your own in-home studio if you're interested in being a DJ or learning how to mix and things of that nature. So we're very interested in trying to figure out what it is that our kids are interested in and using that to incentivize their participation in this opportunity. And then for our adults, we will continue to hopefully on a monthly basis offer some kind of tips like we're doing this evening on how to increase your interactions with your kid to make this time amenable for both of you, so that you're neither of you dreading each other or running from each other because you don't recognize or want to have to deal with all the change that's going on. This is a time, as much as they're fighting for their independence, it's the very time that they need us the most.
That's good. And we are, as Urban League staff, we are still working. We're working remotely. So if you have any questions about anything, you still can give us a call at 864-244-3862. You can ask for Charlene or just listen to some of the options on the voicemail. But Charlene Jones is the director. Press her extension and leave her a message, and we all are responding in a timely manner. Or you can just leave the information in our general mailbox and someone will get that information to her. Also, if you have any additional questions and you would like for us to direct them, you can email us at projectgreenville@urbanleagueupstate.org, and we definitely will shoot those questions or the concerns or whatever you may have to her. So those are two ways. And then Charlene, you wanted to add?
Yes, just wanted to say, if you have access to a group of kids right now in any environment and you're interested in us bringing this opportunity to them, please reach out, because we'd be more than happy to do that. And I can be reached at cjones@urbanleagueupstate.org for my email address, and I'd be happy to connect and make this work for your group as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I did ask you before, so I didn't want to give your email out without your permission. So yes, instead of directing those emails to Project Ready, you can direct them directly to Charlene at cjones@urbanleagueupstate.org or give us a phone call. Any last remarks, Charlene, until next time we meet again?
Just thank you again for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to hearing from folks and seeing what questions they have for us, and really just expanding our connection with the community. So even if this isn't the right match for you and your adolescent at this time, there are other programs that we offer through the Urban League. Housing support service, the Project Ready is the way that we're coming to you this evening. We have Right Steps that deals with juvenile diversion behaviors and things of that nature, and even some after-school programs and tutoring services that are becoming available to you. So we've got a little bit of everything for everybody, and we invite you to figure out a way to connect and get plugged in with us.
Yes, that is great information. And it doesn't stop here. Please tune in next week for part 2 of Teen Pregnancy Prevention with Charlene. And again, if you have any questions or concerns in between now and then, we have given all of the contact information where you can reach us. So thank you again, Charlene, for being our guest tonight. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And as always, I have definitely